Talk and rock radio, where friends meet at the intersection of life, inspiration, and music. Here's your host, Rick Kern.
Welcome, everyone, to Talk and Rock Radio. My guest today is an actor that has over 125 movies to his credit. He's a musician, singer, guitar player, and in 2019 was inducted into the New Mexico Music Hall of Fame. Welcome, Ronny Cox.
Hi, Rick. How you doing?
Fine, man. It's so good to have you on the show today. You know, I want to jump right into this thing. I saw somewhere that I think it was September 20th, 1957. You were in the studio, probably the Norman Petty Studios in Clovis, and you were there when Buddy Holly did Peggy Sue, the song?
Yeah. Well, I was around when they were. I wasn't actually. I mean, I was around that, and I was recording there. Norman Petty hired a group that I was with in high school, and we sang backup on Hope Griffith's record. She had a record called Only Once in a While.
I see.
And so I was around. And I got to make a confession now. I wasn't really that impressed with Buddy Holly at the time. I was behind the curve on that. It took me another 3 or 4 years before I realized, holy Toledo, I was around when this guy was cutting. But there were a lot of people that were cutting there at Norman Petty Studios. I mean, Charlie Phillips cut Sugar Time. You remember Sugar Time?
I don't remember Sugar Time, but I remember Sugar Shack. I remember. Of course. Yeah, and of course the Fireballs did Sugar Shack. You know, so
exactly. And Jimmy Boyd and Buddy Knox cut there.
Yes.
There were just a gazillion people. So, yeah, I was singing with a group in high school, and Norman Petty saw us at what used to be called an exchange assembly. We took a variety show up to Clovis, which was 19 miles north of us. I was in Portales, and he heard us singing, so he hired us to sing backup on Hope Griffith's record, and then I had a rock and roll band back in those days. I had a band. Get ready for this. One of the great names of the Ron's Rockouts.
I like that. That's great. Well, you know, you were in Tall Cotton over there. You had a lot of neat recording artists and talented engineers and people in that studio. I mean, in the last 10 or 11 years, I got to know David Bigham, of course, you know, with the Roses, who recorded, you know, with many backup, you know, did backup vocals with many of the groups back in the day, you know, Roy Orbison and even some with Buddy Holly and I got to know George Tomsko and Stan Lark from the Fireballs, Jerry Naylor, you know, and all these guys that I'm naming, you know, in the last 2 or 3 years, not George Tomsko, but we've lost David Bigham and Stan Lark and Jerry Naylor from the Crickets. Just in the last couple of years, we've lost all three of these guys, and it's kind of hard to accept this, man. You think of these people, they're going to last forever, but unfortunately, God's got a different plan, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know, I wanted to really congratulate you for a job well done, my friend. You were inducted into the New Mexico Music Hall of Fame in 2019. Congratulations.
Well, thanks. And actually, I had a song I wrote about. I had a song called Portales, which is about where I grew up there, 19 miles south of Clovis, and that won Song of the Year last year, too.
I saw that, man. In fact, that was off of the Live at the Kitchen Sink album that you did. That was won the Norman Petty Producer of the Year award. That's big.
Yeah, for my we did it at the kitchen sink there in Santa Fe, and my bass player Panda Tom Ryan produced it and mixed it all for us, and it's I love live albums.
Oh, me too.
Uh, I I mean, a lot of people don't because sometimes there might be a little pitch problem or you may mess up something here, but I like that aspect that it's really there. And see, my show is more intended to be a shared evening that we have with people. I'm one of the few artists that you'll ever see. Now, I don't like to play great, huge venues. Because I want the intimacy.
Sure.
But I'm one of the few artists. See, I go out as soon as they open the doors to let the audience in. I go out and I'm visiting with the audience.
Fantastic. I love that.
Right up until the time it starts, and it pays off in many ways, Rick, because what happens is that I don't have to go through that process of sort of warming the audience up. See, a lot of guys come out and they're strangers so they're not about to start with their best material. They want to make sure they get the audience on their side before they do it. So I established that right away, and I want my show to feel just like it used to feel when we were kids, growing up, sitting around with our family and friends in the living room or kitchen or the front porch, sharing songs and stories, and I'm a storyteller too, being an actor. See, the stories to me are equally as important as the songs are.
Oh, I love that. And speaking of that, let's talk about. I saw your performance of Bus to Baltimore, and by the way, I love that. I love the video. Unfortunately, on this show, because we're doing it just on voice, I will be doing a YouTube video version of this where I'll be putting in a few of the static pictures that I took off the actual video clip to give everybody that's watching it a taste of the lady that I want you to talk about. Give us the back story on Bus to Baltimore.
Well, yeah. Well, I live here in Sherman Oaks, California, which is one of the suburbs of Los Angeles.
Right.
And I was actually in my front yard one day, and I noticed a little lady standing out on the sidewalk in front of my house, and she was very primly dressed. She had a little blue crinoline dress and a little white hat, little white gloves, little white pocketbook. And I mean, she was just dressed to the nines, and she was standing out on the sidewalk beneath a sign that I'm pretty sure she thought was a bus stop. Now I happen to know that the sign says no parking or no standing here or something like that. It's anyway. She was standing out there, and I kept. I mean, I couldn't help but notice her. So, and I noticed that she was getting more and more and more agitated as I was watching, and so finally I couldn't take it anymore, and I went out and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, could I help you?" And she turned and she said, "Yes, young man." She called me young man. She said, "Yes, young man." She said, "Is this where I catch the bus to Baltimore?" And I'm pretty sure that she thought that Baltimore was just a step or a stop or two down.
Yeah.
From there, and so that was the genesis of that song, because eventually her daughter came, and we realized that she was suffering from some form of dementia, and one of the things I like about that song too is the National Alzheimer's Association has chosen it to sort of feature it to raise awareness of Alzheimer's, and so I'm pleased about that.
Wonderful.
She stood on the corner, lost in time, trying to get back somewhere in her mind. Mister, can you help me find the place I'm looking for? I'm waiting for the bus to Baltimore. Pale blue dress neatly pressed, collar made of lace, snow white hair, coal black eyes, angelic face. I really need to get back home, 'cause I've got so many chores. So I'm waiting for the bus to Baltimore. That's where my two babies lie asleep, where Dad and Harvey decorate the tree. Ruth still has a fever, Kathy scraped her knee. They need me. Then a younger woman came and took her by the hand. Have you been telling stories, Mama, to this nice old man? The house she had in Maryland burned down in '94. Still she's waiting for the bus to Baltimore. That's where her two babies lie asleep, where her daddy decorates the Christmas tree. My sister Ruth has moved to Phoenix, so all that's left is me. She needs me. And sometimes late at night, on the edge of sleep, I think about that woman on the street, and I wonder if she found the peace she was longing for. Oh, I hope she found the bus to Baltimore.
That's great. Live at the kitchen sink, you were talking about a second ago. The song Portales off that album, it got Best Folk Song at the New Mexico Music Awards. Let's talk about Portales. I think it's so cool that even though you're out in L.A., living in Sherman Oaks, that you still stay connected to your roots of Portales. You know, you go back to that studio, you cut your music there still and everything. What's the main reason why? I mean, you're out there in Studio City land, you know. I mean, when I was on the road, and we were based out of Newport Beach for a long time, when I was playing out in L.A., you're in tall cotton out there with studios all around you. Let's talk about the studio there. Why do you come back and work with Jono Manson's studio in Santa Fe and Portales and all that? Talk about that a little bit.
We were touring New Mexico at the time. I was just doing a thing, and that was one of the stops. They have some Jono does some almost like house concerts that he records there at his studio. It has an audience of, I can't be more than 25 or 30 people in the audience, but at least there's enough people there to have an audience, because an audience is essential for my songs, because I want to be able to connect and tell, getting that feedback from the audience, but being an actor too, as well as a storyteller, I play off the audience, and so that was really, so we were there doing that, and the how Portales came about really was, I was at a songwriting retreat up in Michigan, up in Upper Michigan, Harbor Springs, and it was one of those places where the claim to fame was that whoever attends that weekend would write a song. You're supposed to write a song in 48 hours. But I talk about this on the album. I have never been able to write songs quickly or on demand, and so I went to this retreat with real trepidations, because I just didn't know if I could do it. I have a line about that somewhere that I don't write songs. Elephants have babies faster than I have write songs.
Funny.
Yeah. So anyway, I got there and I was late getting it, and so the whole idea of writing about Portales was the song assignment that weekend was, he was having the John Lamb, who runs that retreat, had made the decision that he was going to have everybody that attended that weekend to write a love song that was set in their hometown.
Ah, okay.
So that's how that came. I mean, and so he did some research and found out that that we grow peanuts there, and that it's called Goober Gulch, and all kinds of stuff about but basically it was and I was late getting there, and they had some song topics up on the you were supposed to pick one of the I think they had 10 or 12 topics on a bulletin board. So it's supposed to be a love song set in your hometown.
Yeah.
You ain't got no money. Your visa was declined. It's what the cashier told me. Said you're holding up the line. The pretty girl behind me rolled her eyes and shook her head. I was digging in my jeans for my last $10 bill, and I wish that I was dead. But that's life in Portales. The only place we're better than is Dallas. Oh, that's life in Goober Gulch. God help me, please. Well, I was there buying beer. She was picking up some cheese. And while the cashier was engaged in higher mathematics, we began to shoot the breeze. She said,
I think I know you. Didn't you used to work down at Sears?
I said, yeah, but that was when I was in high school, during my first junior year. When That's life in Portales. I told her my favorite team was whoever was playing Dallas. Oh, that's life in Goober Gulch. God help me, please. She said,
I see you got some Rolling Rock.
yes, ma'am, that's the only brand I drink. And I said, I see you purchased some Velveeta.
You bet I did. Those fancy foreign cheeses stink.
That's life in Portales. Who'd have thunk that I'd run into Alice? Oh, that's life in Goober Gulch. Rolling Rock, Velveeta cheese. Now I got a whole lot of so-called sophisticated friends. Turn their nose up at Rolling Rock. And those same damn snobby people go for cheese that smells like a week-old sock. But this was a match made in heaven.
It was the best day of my life. And come next Christmas morning,
I'm gonna make her my third wife. Merry Christmas from Portales. Even baby Jesus ain't too keen on Dallas. Merry Christmas from me and Alice. God help us, please. Rolling Rock, Velveeta cheese.
You know, you after doing a lot of listening of really cool and watching YouTube clips that you've got out there, I was intrigued with A Horse Named Music by Wayne Carson. And I know Randy Travis and Willie Nelson covered the song, but you know, I really like your version of that song. Talk about it and tell me why you decided to record that song.
Well, first of all, Wayne and I were really close friends. When I had a record deal for about 20 minutes in Nashville in the early 90s. And I went, and that's actually in the early, until the early 90s, I had never written a song in my life. I had always done covers. Mickey Newbury is God to me, and
yeah.
I used to do 2-hour gigs and do nothing but Mickey Newbury songs because you can't do much better than that. So, but when I went to Nashville, the producers wanted me, that they put me together with some songwriters, and so that was my first, and I met Wayne Carson there, and he and Wayne and I became really close type friends, and we wrote 2 or 3 songs together, none of them really that good, but as you know, he wrote The Letter and Horse, You're Always on My Mind, and but I love his. He told me the story of a horse called Music. He grew up in Colorado, and he was telling me Wayne used to be this pretty. He did a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs back in those days, and sometimes without carousing all night long. And he came home one night, actually got in just as the sun was coming up
Yeah.
in Nashville. and he was getting ready for bed. Had stripped down to his skivvy shorts, and it snowed in Nashville. And he looked out his window there and saw the snow on the roofs and the telephone lines across, and it reminded him of his childhood growing up in Colorado. And so, and this is Wayne's story now. As you know, Wayne Carson is a pretty fabulous storyteller too. So, but according to Wayne, he went over and picked up his guitar, standing there in his skivvy shorts and looking out at the snow across the way, sang the song Horse Called Music from top to bottom. And according to Wayne, has never changed a word or a syllable in that song. It took him as long to write it as it took him to sing it.
Wow.
High on a mountain in western Montana, a silhouette moves across a cinnamon sky. Riding along on a horse he called music, with a song on his lips and a tear in his eye. Dreams of a time and the lady that loved him, and how he would sing her sweet lullabies. We don't ever ask him, and he never talks about her. I guess it's just better if we all let it slide. He sang, ooh, to the ladies. Ooh, he made some sigh. Now he rides away on a horse he calls music, with a song on his lips and a tear in his eye. He rode the music from Boston to Bozeman for not too much money, way too much ride. Those were the days a horse he called music could jump through the moon, sail across the sky. Now all that's left is a time-worn cowboy with nothing left but the sweet by and by. And trailing behind is a horse with no rider, a horse he calls memories that she used to ride. He sang, ooh, to the ladies. Ooh, he damn near made some fall right down and die. Now he rides away on a horse he calls music, with a pain in his heart and a tear in his eye. High on a mountain in western Montana, two crosses cut through a cinnamon sky, marking the place where a horse he called music plays with the cowboy in the sweet by and by.
And I love that song, and I'm glad that you like my version. Now, I don't know if Wayne was just winding me up or what, but Wayne always said that he liked my version, even though Willie's done it actually twice. He liked it so well that he recorded it again. Randy Travis has done it. That any number of people have recorded this song. It's just a wonderful song, and I love being able to have it. I've recorded it twice. I don't know if you've heard. I have an album. Now, I don't own this album, but I had a Mercury. I had a Nashville deal with Mercury, and it's on that album too.
Oh,
Do you know that album? It's just called Ronny Cox is the title of the album, and it's on Mercury. Nashville came out in like 92, 93, something like that.
Yeah, and I think it was 93. I was looking at your discography. I've got it right here in front of me, and it does. It was your first one in 93 called Ronny Cox.
Yeah. And man, look at the players on there. I mean, Paul Worley, who produced the album for me, asked me who I wanted to play on the album. I said, I want all the best. And I don't mean to brag too much, but the magazine there used to list all the top players, and the way they did it were the players that were on the most hit records, and my guys on that album were the top players of across. Sid Page, remember Sid Page from Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks?
Oh yes, of course.
You know, and Sid was the fiddle player. I mean, Eddie Bayer's on drums. Paul Lime, Biff. It's just all the top players.
Did you do that? Did you do that album in Nashville, Ronnie?
I did. I did it at the Money Pit.
Okay, yeah, outstanding. We've been talking all about music. Let's talk a little bit about. First, I want to say in 2021, we're seeing the return of Ronnie back into film as he appeared in Being in the Ricardos. That's just came out.
That's so funny. I these days I made a decision several years ago that I mean, I love acting, don't get me wrong, and I'm good at it, but I don't love it quite as much as the music. And the reason I don't it is with acting, no matter what kind of deal, movies, television, plays, you name it. There is and must be that imaginary fourth wall between you and the audience. And you can't step through the camera and talk directly to, if you're in a play, you have to stay within the character. Well, the kind of show I do, there's the possibility of a profound one-on-one sharing that takes place, and that's an opiate that is undeniable. And so because of that, I made this decision several years ago that I wasn't going to let, I still act, but I wasn't going to let any movie or television show interfere with any music gig that I already had booked. And so I've been very, very selective about the things that I wanted to do. But when they called me up for Being the Ricardos, I only worked one day. I never had so many people write to me about about me being in that. I can't explain that, but and we shot it at the Queen Mary because it's a period piece,
Right.
and the Queen Mary, all the furniture and all the decor, everything was right about the Queen Mary. So I shot one day on it, and I had a good time. Nicole Kidman and I hit it off, and Lucy Arnaz and I, she and I had worked together a couple of times before, and so it was good to get to catch up with her. And John Rubinstein, he was in the car that I did with James Brolin years ago. So this sounds egotistical as hell, but I'll live with it. When I was doing the show, almost to a man, everyone in the crew came up to me and wanted to shake my hand and welcome me to be there, because I don't know if I can explain this adequately without it sounding like the biggest ego in the world, but I'm nearly always the crew member's favorite actor. And the reason for that is I started out in crew. I was an assistant stage manager when I first started out. And I found out early on that I couldn't spend time in the dressing room. I lost my focus of this. So I always, instead of going and being in a dressing room or a motorhome or wherever it is, I always and hung out with the crew. And so because of that, it's almost like I got to be a sort of honorary crew member, and so it does one's heart good to have the crew guys come up and say, "Hey, it's great to see you again."
Well, yeah, you also did some voiceover work for the new Nickelodeon series Star Trek Prodigy. That's kind of cool.
We're not allowed to talk about that yet.
Okay, let's not talk about that yet.
I asked them, I said, when can we start talking about this? And they said, not yet.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's jump right into RoboDoc. There's going to be a release of a documentary, the creation of RoboCop. I guess it spans, over 30 years, the 30-year legacy of RoboCop?
Yeah, and it is the definitive version of the making of RoboCop, and they got all of us in there. I did I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes of interviews with those guys, and if you're a RoboCop aficionado, you may want to check that out. Very
cool. Well, I'm excited about that. How soon is that one going to come out?
Well, it's supposed to be out already, but it keeps getting so. Look up RoboDoc.
Okay, I will. Is it on Netflix? Can you find it on Netflix or?
It's a British company.
Ah, okay.
So Christopher Griffith and I can't remember the other guys' names that did it, but it's been in the making for 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's apparently it's getting close to like 3.5 hours long now.
Wow. Okay.
So, but it's called RoboDoc.
Looking forward to checking that one out. You've done so many great movies. I look at the list here, and I mean, Beverly Hills Cop 2. I mean, Stargate. Alcatraz, Harper Valley PTA, Bonanza, The Mind Snatchers. Boy, there's a good one. 1972. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's based on a play I did in New York that was sort of my big break. That's what I did that for Joe Papp, who was the king of, and I did that with Marty Sheen originally, but now the movie I did with Chris Walken. But that was sort of the first thing that got me noticed in New York, and because it got me noticed when the producers for Deliverance came to New York looking for good unknown actors, and God knows I was unknown, they went to Joe Papp's theater and asked if there was an actor, any actors that Joe might recommend, and Joe recommended, and so they saw me for Deliverance based on Joe Papp's recommendation from the Mind Snatchers, and it was called The Happiness Cage when we did it as a play.
I see. Now, back when you started acting, Ronny, I know you were probably playing music and acting at the same time, but was that something that kind of worked in tandem for you, or did you study acting in drama class in high school, or how did all that begin?
Yeah, it was always hand in hand. I started playing guitar when I was about 14, put myself through high school, but I was in all the plays in high school. I was a theater major in college, but was playing rock and roll band with Ron's Rockouts at the same time. And my first professional job was up in Colorado, a place called Buckskin Joe, where we did melodramas for the tourists there. And then, but we followed, and we did gunfights in the street during the day.
That's cool.
But then we followed each of the melodramas with what's called an olio. I don't know if you know what an olio, OLIO, is. Olio, where that was a term for a series of vaudeville acts that used to be after shows, and so I played music and sang in the olio as well as acted too. And then when I went when we got out of college and went to my wife Mary had a PhD in chemistry. She had a National Science Foundation fellowship to Georgetown University, and I went along with her. We had a little boy by that time, and I started to work at Arena Stage in Washington D.C. And so while she was getting her PhD, I was working in theater there, but I also played at a club called Mr. Henry's in up on Capitol Hill in Washington D.C. And Mr. Henry's had two rooms. He had the upstairs and the downstairs. Roberta Flack was playing in the upstairs. I was playing in the downstairs.
Well, that's cool. That's a neat memory that you've got there. I want to hear a standout moment involving your movies. And you pick the movie, it doesn't matter to me, because I love hearing your stories. Think back and tell me any event or any particular standout time when you were doing movies that you would like to share a story on.
That's so hard. There's so many great stories about all the films. Well, I'll give you one. I was, after a while, I was in every movie made there for a little while. And so once I was doing two movies at once. I was doing the Canon production of Captain America that we shot in Yugoslavia. It's a terrible movie, but I was playing the President of the United States in that, and then I was at the same time I was shooting Total Recall in Mexico City.
I love that movie
with Arnold.
Yeah,
and so I was flying back and forth between the two sets because I was working on both movies at once. So I was playing the president, the nicest president in the world in Yugoslavia, and I was playing the meanest dictator in the universe in Mexico City with Arnold.
Yeah, Chancellor Vilos Cohaagen. Yeah.
And I remember I sort of had to look down and see what I was wearing to know. But I loved the look that I had with Cohaagen, who had my hair all slicked back, what Mary used to call the Lizard King look. and I remember the first day, because we're shooting in Mexico City, and the bulk of our crew were Mexican citizens, and then Joseph Acano brought a lot of his German crew with him. But we had very few Americans on the crew. We had, and so I remember the first day I was walking with my Vilos Cohaagen suit on and my hair all slicked back, and I'm walking along, and I'm walking over to the set. And the little Mexican crew guys, they all stopped and so almost like came to attention, and they said, "El Jefe," the chief.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's funny, man. That's a great story. I've always been intrigued by actors and what they have to do to prepare to be in their role. Did you ever, this may be a real dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. In your time of doing movies, have you ever had those times where you, what they call, went up or gone up?
Oh, sure.
Yeah?
Everybody goes up.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's the nature of the beast, because there are a lot of things that you see. I am not, and I underline the word not, a method actor. I'm not one of these people that has to become that other person, because there's so many things that you have to keep. There's so many balls that you have to keep juggling in the air. You have to make sure you hit the right mark. You have to make sure that you're messing. There's all kinds of things that you have to do that in addition to portraying this person.
The timing, the character, all of that, right? Absolutely
true. But there is things about acting that. And I just thought of this just off the top of my head, because you were thinking about things that are difficult about acting. And one of the most difficult roles I ever had to play was I did the 4-hour miniseries of the John Benet Ramsey murder case.
Uh-huh.
I played John Ramsey. And like I said, But here's the thing about acting. Your body doesn't know that you're acting. So the reason playing John Ramsey was so difficult was because for 4 months we're dealing with the death of a little 5-year-old girl. And by the way, the little actress that played John Benet, she and I became, I was close with her. And so dealing with the loss of a child, mm-hmm. every day you go and you're emotionally, you're dealing with the loss of a child. Now, intellectually, you know that you're acting, but that's when I'm saying that your body doesn't know you're acting, because you're going through these terrible emotions all day. Now you get to the end of the day and you say, "Oh, okay, that's done. I'm going to go." And then your body doesn't know that. You're saying, "No, wait a minute, pal. You've been surging this adrenaline through me all day, and now you expect me to just let it go?" No. And so for those 4 months, that was really, really hard work.
I can only imagine. I just can't even go there. I can't even. All I can do is relate, because I never really acted. I did some in college when we were doing, some concerts. It was like Cavalleria Rusticana. When I was singing opera stuff in college, we did some things. We did different shows that involved acting, and but all I had to do is just memorize the music. That was and to me, when you have a love and passion for music, that's easy to do. Except when you're singing with your rock band and you're singing Hotel California, there were so many verses I had to put. Being a drummer, it was easy for me because I could put the notes down on my drums and read the words right off there because I knew I'm gonna mess up some of these verses. There were so darn many of them, but bottom line, it all worked out, and eventually I had them all memorized, so it was no big problem. Funny stories related to your movies, Ronnie. Are there any standout moments that you can think of that just brought the house down or if it was a rehearsal or whatever it was? I always like seeing those outtakes and stuff like that.
Well, working with Eddie Murphy is the hardest, and this was Beverly Hills Cop was really his the first one was really his breakout movie, and the hardest that's another thing that was hard about doing that, being off camera when Eddie was, because they're shooting it on Eddie, and the rest of us are around. He's talking to us and doing all the stuff, but just trying to be there and not break up and not make noise and ruin his take was the hardest thing in the world. Because I've done 3 films with Eddie, and Cop 1 and Cop 2, and then I did a little film called Imagine That with Eddie as well, and he's brilliant. And just that, and I think you just reminded me of one of my favorite movies that I ever got to act in, and I became really close friends with Richard Pryor. I did a film called Some Kind of Hero with Richard Pryor, and this is the first film he did right after he burned himself up.
Right.
And he was in a really fragile state at that time, and because first of all, Some Kind of Hero, while it had some comedic elements, it was primarily a serious movie, and so Richard was really nervous about being about so much. He didn't have a lot of comedy to fall back on, and I'll tell you an embarrassing story. It turns out that Richard was sort of intimidated from working with, because he thought I was a good dramatic actor, and so it was kind of embarrassing to have him come to me for advice and stuff. And so he and I became such good friends that Richard was in such sort of fragile emotionally at that time, mm-hmm. that they ended up putting me in 2 or 3 scenes that my character was not in. I don't know if you've seen it for a while.
No, I haven't seen it.
There's a scene where he's a prisoner of war in Vietnam, and they have prisoners in dog cage. I'm one of those guys in the dog cages. They added me to that, and they added me to another couple of scenes just because Richard was better when I was around, and so I'm really honored and pleased about that. And so yeah, working with Richard was and we did a thing that I don't know that's ever been done before. Well, we finished Some Kind of Hero, and I'm sure you've seen any number of phone calls in movies, and the way they oftentimes is they'll shoot one side of the phone call we had a phone call between Richard's character and my character,
Right.
and we shot my side. So in other words, they set up the camera in my office, and I answer the phone, and then Richard's off camera there feeding me the lines back and forth. And so we did my side and finished that all up, and then I finished the film, and I then went to King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. I was shooting a film called Taps that I did with Timothy Hutton and Sean Penn and George C. Scott and Tom Cruise. Anyway, I was in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, shooting the film, and they still hadn't, and it got to be time to shoot Richard's side of his phone call. And so we did a thing that maybe has never happened before. The day that they were going to shoot his, they called me on the phone. And I actually, from King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, gave Richard his lines back and forth, and then between takes we visited, and so we spent a couple hours, and so I was actually off stage for him because if you've ever been in a film, doing your lines with the script supervisor feeding you the other lines is no fun. So he had he had a real actor to say the words to him, and I was the struggling actor. To tell you the truth, in the first 11 years I had never made more than $6,000 in 1 year in my life. Wow. I mean, literally, we lived hand to mouth, and extremely happy, and with two small boys, but it just didn't include having any money. And then all of a sudden I did Deliverance, and like I said, doors were open to me that I didn't even know existed before. All of a sudden I was being offered stuff I didn't have to go and audition. I was just offered stuff, and it was amazing.
No. Now, ask him about his hat. Come on.
I don't think you understood me. I want to get some drivers to drive this car and that car down to Aintree. Drivers, you understand?
You might get a driver, brothers.
Who?
The driver brothers.
Where do they live?
They live back over that way.
Genetic deficiencies. Not pitiful.
Who's picking the manger here?
Come on, I'm with you.
with that guy.
I believe you could, too. I believe you could.
That's good.
That's very good, sir.
God damn, you play a mean banjo. Hey, you want to play another one?
Give him a couple of bucks.
It's quite a movie. In fact, my wife and I are going to watch it again. I've seen it numerous times, but we're gonna watch it again, and I'm sure I'll enjoy it just as much as I did the first time. It's great acting, and even though it was done back in 1972, but some of my most favorite films are older films.
Let me recommend a film. There's a film that my wife and I wrote that we shot in Las Cruces, and called Raw Courage.
Okay.
I used to be I was a former marathon, so it's about some guys that are ultra marathoners and running. It's kind of an action adventure film, but it's the only film that I've ever written and hadn't got produced on my own.
Do you ever get back to your roots of Cloudcroft, New Mexico?
I haven't been in Cloudcroft for about 8 or 10 years. I played a show in Cloudcroft, and I played a couple of shows in Ruidoso, at Alamogordo. But I didn't get down to that part of the state when I was back in 2019. I was more in Silver City, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Portales, and places like that.
Yeah, we have
my sister still lives in Clovis,
okay.
And I have a brother that lives in El Paso.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, my brother Harold HD was worked for the railroad, Southern Pacific there with the line chief for years and years and years. Started out this will date us all. Started out as a telegrapher.
My gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, I'll tell you something else, and this will blow your mind. I was actually living in Roswell, New Mexico, July 9th, 1947, when the UFOs were supposed to have come. As a matter of fact, my dad, was working at that Air Force base, Walker Air Force Base. So I was there, which explains a lot of stuff.
Okay.
I was 9 years old. It was just before my 9th birthday, and I lived in Roswell up from time I was from 3 until I was in 5th grade, I think. And then we moved to Hot Springs, New Mexico, and I was actually living in Hot Springs when they changed the name to Truth or Consequences.
Oh, wow. Okay. Named after the movie, or not the movie, but the game show, correct?
Exactly. Well, what happened was Ralph Edwards came out there and talked the city fathers into changing the name, and they went for it. And for years, then Ralph Edwards, and then eventually what's his name, that took over after he did. They came out because Hot Springs is a tourist town. Primarily, people come there for the hot baths.
Sure.
And that they would do a variety show. They would bring Hollywood celebrities out every year and do a big variety show. So it was actually very good for the community and good for their television. Actually, one year when I was doing a television series called Apple's Way, which was my first television series. And so I got invited out there and actually participated in one of the variety shows, played music with them. There's an old, maybe you're old enough to remember this. There was a singing cowboy, Eddie Dean. Remember Eddie Dean?
I'm not sure.
He was, look him up. Now, he was one of the early singing cowboys, but he wasn't a singing cowboy like Roy Rogers or Gene Autry. He had practically a legitimate voice, like almost our operatic voice.
Mm-hmm.
Look up Eddie Dean sometime.
I will.
When I did a show in Cloudcroft, it's got to be close to 10 years ago now, and I actually stayed at the lodge, and according to them, I stayed in the room where I was born.
That's cool. That's nice. That's an interesting thing, man. I like that. Well, Ronny, we have pretty much exhausted our time here, but I have so enjoyed visiting with you.
This has been fun.
You know, I really am a fan, and I'm glad you joined up with me to do this show. I have to thank your agent also for
Stephanie's great, isn't she?
She's wonderful, you know. But my friend, I really appreciate doing the show with you, and I wish you continued success. And I would love to still stay in touch with you now and then and hear what you're doing, and
sure,
you know, go from there. You know.
Yeah, Steph always knows how to get in touch with me.
Okay, well, you take care. You have a good rest of your week, and I don't know who you're rooting for the Super Bowl, but you know you're out in California, so I kind of have an idea.
I got to root for the Rams. We're here. I got to root for the Rams.
Yeah, that's kind of where I thought you'd be going with that. All right, my friend. Well, good talking with you, and take good care of yourself, and we'll see you down the road somewhere.
Great. Thanks. Bye.
Take care, buddy.